Hi, I'm Eugene Driscoll, and welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indy podcast. We're recording this episode on October 17th, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Ethan Fry.
Hello.
Hello, Ethan. We're both reporters with valleyindy.org, a nonprofit online newspaper in Ansonia, Connecticut. Today, our guest is George Logan, the Republican candidate trying to unseat Senator Joseph Crisco in the 17th State District. Mr. Logan, welcome to the Valley Indy, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Eugene and Ethan. Thank you for this opportunity. Glad to be here.
The 17th District, by the way, includes Ansonia, Beacon Falls, Bethany, Derby, Hamden, Naugatuck, and Woodbridge. Right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
All right, good. Thanks. And by the way, if you want to learn more about George Logan, visit his website. It's www.logan4ct. That's the number 4, logan4ct.com. And from there, you can find his Facebook, Twitter, and all kinds of information. So let's just get right into it. Let's just briefly talk about Donald Trump. He is the sort of dominating the news cycle. The presidential election in general is dominating the news cycle. You're running as a Republican. Will you be voting for Donald Trump on November 8th?
Well, this is what I tell folks. You know, I'm running for a state senate in the 17th district to represent the folks in the Valley. I'm not at all involved in the presidential election, so I prefer to keep my focus on the 17th district and the issues that are involved in the 17th districts. It doesn't really do me any good, or doesn't really help my constituents for me to be commenting on the presidential election or any other election other than my campaign.
Do you think, though, there could be, in the Valley, I'm thinking of Ansonia and Derby, we're sort of the land of the independent voters who don't have a party affiliation. If you don't comment on Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, what if they're using that as a litmus test as to whether to support you? Do you think it could hurt you by not addressing that issue?
I would humbly suggest that voters not do that either way, because I'm here to not represent any particular political party. I'm here to represent Republicans, Democrats, unaffiliated voters, Donald Trump supporters, Hillary Clinton supporters. I'm here to represent the folks in the 17th district here in Connecticut and in Hartford. So that's where my focus is on those types of issues. In terms of me commenting on the presidential election, again, don't really think it does anything for what we need to do in terms of education, health insurance, taxes, jobs. And it kind of is a distraction to the focus. As it is now, the presidential election is taking away a lot of attention to what I think is very important here in Connecticut. In my humble opinion, the state legislative races have more of a direct impact on the lives of the people living in my district, living in Connecticut, than the presidential election. When you take a look, even when federal dollars come in from the federal government, it's the state legislature that decides how that money gets allocated, throughout the state. When the towns pay their taxes up to the state and it's distributed back for education and other things, it's the state legislature that decides how that happens. If you have a problem, you're not going to call President Obama, you're not going to call Hillary Clinton, you're not going to call Donald Trump. But you have much more of a chance of calling your state legislature. So we really need to focus when it comes to the state races, on the state race and the issues in the district, and let the pundits and commentators and folks like you, feel free to comment on the presidential election. But that really is not my focus at all.
Well, how about commenting in general on the tenor of the presidential race? Does it? You called it a distraction. It's been. It's hard. Not to talk about it, because I don't think we've seen something like this in our lifetime when it's become this negative. How does it create challenges or opportunities for you as someone who's new to the political arena, trying to unseat an incumbent who's been there for a long time?
Sure, certainly a challenge, because what I have to do, and I think most of my fellow state legislators have to do, whether they're incumbent or challengers, is keep folks refocused on home, what's going on here in the state, and what are issues here during a presidential election year. That's a challenge that's been going on in the history of elections here in Connecticut. No different now. In terms of politics, part of the reason why I'm running for office, I'm a first-time candidate, is because I want to change the tone here in the state. I can't really do much in terms of the national tenor that's going on. But here in the state, I think we have too much in terms of party politics going on. and I want to be more of an independent voice for the 17th district. I want to make decisions that are best for the people living in the 17th district, and I am not concerned or interested in going to Hartford to represent the interests of any political party, whether it's a Republican or Democrat. I'm here to represent the folks in the 17th district and make decisions that's best for the folks living in the 17 districts. Sometimes they may align with the Democratic Party. Sometimes they may align with the Republican Party. I'm going to be an independent voice for the 17 districts. We're missing that now. We don't have that right now.
How long have you been a member of the Republican Party?
Just under a year. I was an unaffiliated voter since I first registered when I was 18 years old. Reason for that is because I've never believed in voting strictly straight down party line. I always vote for the individual. I look at their voting record, I look at what they represent, and I vote for that individual. Now, I would say as of late, I consider myself more now of a moderate Republican. I'm more centrist. Certainly, I don't think I lean to the far left as far as a liberal is concerned, and I'm certainly not a right wing.
You don't?
No, I do not. No. I what really attracted me to the Republican Party is in terms of their tenets, in terms of working hard, fiscal responsibility, working to bring yourself up by your bootstraps. Those are the kinds of things that I was instilled by my parents when I was growing up. So I think they're very much in line with the Republican Party in that sense.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in inner city New Haven, in the Hills section. Then from there, I went to Notre Dame High School in West Haven. My son's a senior there now, so he's at my alma mater. I attended Trinity College in Hartford, majored in engineering, even though it's a liberal arts school, known as a liberal arts school. I majored in engineering. I have a master's degree from the University of Bridgeport. I work at a water utility, Aquarian Water Company. Mainly serves Fairfield County area, but we're also in Litchfield County and Groton area, part of Stonington, part of the state as well.
And you got that right out of college? You've been with the company for a long time?
Yeah. I've been working at Aquarian as an engineer and now an executive for about as long as Senator Crisco has been in Hartford. About 24 years. Next May will be 25 years at Aquarian.
And I apologize for skipping around here, but
no, not a problem.
Just to get to know you a little bit, what type of work did your dad do? What did your mom do? Brothers, sisters, or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. So both of my parents, so I'm first generation here in the States. My parents came from Guatemala, Central America. Believe it or not. I'm of African descent. There aren't many folks in Guatemala of African descent, but there are some there. But in the 1930s, there was a depression, right? Mm-hmm. And the depression wasn't just in the United States. It was, all over the region, all over the world. So a lot of folks from the islands, particularly Jamaica, left the island to go seek a better life. So 3 of my grandparents immigrated over to Guatemala. So my parents were born there. And then in the 60s, the United States was involved in Central America quite a bit. So, who's now my uncle? He was in the army, but he was a repairman for helicopters. So he was stationed in Guatemala, and he came across who's now my aunt, and they got married. He brought my aunt to Connecticut, and then my grandmother, she had 9 kids. She came to Connecticut, and then everybody else kind of sort of followed. I have a very interesting story. When my mother came in about 1966, I'm 47. I was born in 69. My mother came over, and that was the love of my dad's life, right? So in Guatemala, you can travel from one part of the country to the other in like 12 hours, right? Mm-hmm. So my dad, got a visa, and he flew to the United States. He flew to Miami, to Florida. Called up my uncle, and he said, without any forewarning, he said, "Hey, I'm here in the United States. I need you to come pick me up." "Oh, where are you?" He was thinking JFK, New York. He's in Miami, so he drove down there and picked him up. So my father worked as a janitor, at a mechanic, but then he ended up at American Crucible. He worked at a factory. It was in North Haven, no longer exists now. He was there for 17 years. My mother was they called her back then, they called them secretaries. She was a secretary at Yale University, Career Services. So she was there for a number of years as well.
So, yeah, that's fascinating. And did you have brothers and sisters?
I do, yes. So my brother, my younger brother, he is a a supervisor, a probation officer, supervisor in Manchester. So he's doing well. And my youngest brother, he repairs computers.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we're all in Connecticut still.
And just growing up in New Haven, I didn't think you were allowed to be a Republican if you grew up in New Haven. I thought everybody's a Democrat there. And this will be heard on WNHH 103.5 New Haven.
Yeah, I also want to. I have one other sibling.
Go ahead. Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt with bad jokes.
I have one other sibling as well. His name's Jose. He lives in New Haven as well with his family. Yeah, as far as party affiliation, that was never really my focus. Growing up. But as far as demographics go, you do tend to find more Democrats in urban areas. For one, I think I'd like to be a part of changing that misconception that if you're from an urban area that for some reason you're supposed to be a Democrat or supposed to be a Republican or supposed to be unaffiliated. The choices really should be on the individual, and I think. The Republican Party has a lot to offer, but I don't think that the focus needs to be about party affiliation. Again, I was an unaffiliated voter for over 20 years. I think it's just more important that you look at the individual, look at what they represent, look what they stand for. If they're an incumbent, look at their record and what they've done in terms of what they've supported in terms of bills and programs and the like.
Okay. And then moving on to some, policy issues
Sure.
here. You've identified jobs and the economy as the top issues in Connecticut. Unless, Ethan, did you have a follow-up you want? I saw you.
No. The only thing I was wondering about was, obviously, I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but the immigration is a big issue in this year's election nationally. As someone who we're all the family, we all descend from the families of immigrants, unless we're, Native Americans. You're sort of first generation, I guess. So does that have any more resonance with you? Having that sort of recent family history in terms of that national conversation. Do you have anything? Does that impact you differently, or do you have any thoughts about it?
Yeah, sure. In terms of immigration,
there's been a lot of heated rhetoric, let's say, and it's I don't know, from a lot, mainly from Republicans in terms of we have to keep everybody out. There's criminals coming to our country, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I wouldn't put that blanket opinion on all Republicans. I, for one, am a Republican. I don't hold that opinion where you need to. Immigrants have always.
Yeah, Donald Trump. Not to bring up the name we can't speak about again, but Donald Trump declaring for president, said that Mexicans are rapists, things like that. He later said he wasn't. He didn't say that about all Mexican immigrants or all immigrants, et cetera. But I think it's undeniable that it's been a prominent feature of his campaign as anti-immigrant rhetoric.
Sure, I think you're very you're accurate in those statements. I will say I'm not a surrogate of Donald Trump. I certainly would recommend you ask Donald Trump or one of his surrogates as to why he's taken the positions that he's taken. In terms of my stance when it comes to immigrants, we have immigrants throughout the state, certainly in the 17th district. So I focus on those. Immigration and immigrants is just part of the backbone of our country. I do feel that we are a country of rules and laws, and those rules and laws should be followed. I'm not in favor of supporting illegal immigration, but I'm certainly in favor of supporting legal immigration. And I do think that we probably need to look at the laws of the land to make sure that we're being fair and inclusive. But I'm certainly in favor of legal immigration, not in favor of supporting or illegal immigration, just as I'm not in favor of supporting most illegal activities.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So sorry, I interrupted myself. You've identified jobs and the economy as the top issues in Connecticut. And you've said that payroll taxes, health care requirements, and other state mandates make the state uncompetitive. Can you describe the problem for me with payroll taxes and what you would do to fix it if you're elected?
Yeah, so just in general, when you look at the state of Connecticut, we have a fiscal issue here, budgetary issue here. And the current majority party leadership, their way of solving this is tax more and spend more. We need to do more to keep companies from leaving the state. We have this outflow of companies leaving the state, taking jobs with them. We have to stop that. And I think the current majority party leadership is not doing enough to do that. And then we need to...
Let me just, how
Sure.
would you stop some of the companies from leaving Connecticut?
Well, one, we're regulation. We're over-regulating folks, death by 1,000 cuts. We need to stop, minimize how much we're regulating companies, let companies do what they do best, and smaller government. We don't need to tell the medium-sized or large companies exactly how to run their company. We need to allow them the freedom to do that, because what happens is, if they don't know when the next tax is going to come on, it's going to be dropped on them, but they see where the needle is pointing, they're going to be more reluctant to hire new workers, right? They're going to be more reluctant to expand their businesses in Connecticut. If they get a better opportunity to go somewhere else to take their company, they're going to do that. We need to stop that. And when they're not getting any sort of indication from the leadership in Hartford that they understand that companies and jobs are the backbone in terms of families working and being able to earn a living. If you don't lead by example, by your actions, we're going to continue on this downward spiral. I also think we need to reprioritize our spending. I don't think we have, per se, a revenue issue. As a state, we have, I think we're like 2 or 3 in terms of per capita income in the nation. I think the issue is the way we're spending our money. In the corporate world, again, I'm an engineer, executive. I manage multi-million-dollar water treatment plants and pump stations, and put together small, distribution system plans and water supply plans and that sort of thing. And I'm used to solving, problems. When a corporation or company has a program or an initiative that's no longer meeting its goals or objectives, right? When you have a program, your initiative, you set up goals and objectives. Over time, that program or initiative can go wobbly in terms of meeting its goals and objectives. So what do? It becomes inefficient. You need to make changes to make it more efficient, right? If you can't make the program or initiative efficient, in the corporate world, you usually find something to replace it with. Well, what we're doing here in the state is, when we have initiatives or programs and they're not very efficient, we create a new program and spend more money to fix the problems with the existing programs or initiatives. I think we need to do more.
What are some examples? As somebody, I'm not that familiar with some of the state programs you're talking about.
Sure. Well, look at
what are some examples of that?
Look at healthcare, for example. In my opinion, there's a lot of folks, a lot of state workers who are on the front lines. They see where their department or the programs that they're working for is not working right, but they're not being listened to. They're not being listened to by their upper management. I don't think they're being listened to by the union leaders that are meant to represent them. So I think the state can do more in terms of making the programs and departments that various departments and programs that we have working in the state more efficient. Focus on that. As opposed to just looking to remedy a problem with an additional program, additional money, without actually fixing the root cause of any of the problems that we have with the programs that we're running. Whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, and such. Whether it's Department of Motor Vehicles, the list just goes on and on and on.
You mentioned regulation, over-regulation. Could you point to a specific regulation or state law or anything that, if the Republicans took a majority in Hartford, let's say, they go there day one, let's get rid of these regulations, which ones specifically are bad?
Yeah, for because you're addressing voters who might not be that familiar with the intricacies of every department of the state, so something they can wrap their hands around. Sure, and also keep in mind, I'm the challenger, right? First time I'm running for elected office. Certainly don't represent the state Republican Party in terms of, and then there is an actual plan. If they have a 5-year plan, which you can look up online on the internet. But one example is payroll tax. Payroll tax is huge. It's a huge problem for most medium-sized companies. When you take a look at GE, who's left the state, and Sikorsky, for example,
Sikorsky wants to expand their business here, right? Add more jobs, right? Which they're going to do, which I think is a great idea. But given the current tax structure that we have here in Connecticut now, they wouldn't be able to afford to do that. So in order for Sikorsky to want to expand and add several thousand jobs to Connecticut, the governor and the majority party leadership had to cut a deal. Right, had to cut a deal. Had to cut him a deal of over $200 million. Well, guess what? The medium size and the small mom and pop businesses, they don't get that deal. They don't get that opportunity. So just as it doesn't work for a large corporation like Sikorsky, the current tax structure doesn't work for the small mom and pop and the medium-sized companies that really, when you really look at it, are responsible for overall most of the jobs in the state of Connecticut.
How do you respond to, yes. I know Governor Malloy, this just popped in my head, he uses that phrase where we're living, and I'm going to butcher it, the new normal, the economic conditions we're in are sort of the new normal of how we do business in Connecticut. How do you respond to that?
The way, I've heard the term, the new reality, right?
Right.
I just, to some degree, I get kind of offended by that when he says that, because it's kind of like... his policies, the majority party leadership in Hartford are the ones who put us in this mess, right? So you put us in this mess, and then you say, well, I put you in this mess, but I'm the one that's in best position to take you out of it. It's kind of like someone who sets the building on fire and says, hey, I'm the guy that's here that is best positioned to put out the fire. I don't believe that. We're a state of millions of people. I think the current leadership in Hartford has put us in this mess. I don't see why we keep sending the same leaders to Hartford that put us in this mess. I don't think they're the ones that are going to get us out of this mess. We need a new way of thinking, which I don't think, in a new direction for Connecticut, and I just don't think the current majority party leadership can accomplish. And Governor Malloy has been in there for several years now, and Senator Joe Crisco. When you take a look at the decline of the state in terms of our financial standing, the budgetary crisis that we have, elections, year after year, legislative session after legislative session, Crisco's been there during this entire slide. Senator Joe Crisco has voted nearly 100% directly in line with Governor Malloy and the majority party leadership. Nearly 100%. Last session, 100%. Every single bill that came up from the majority party, Joe Crisco, said, "Yep, that's the one I'm going to go for." The year before that, it was about 93%. You keep going back behind that, it's again nearly 100%. We need someone who's going to be an independent thinker, independent voice for the 17th district. And I just don't agree with the direction that Governor Malloy and the majority party leadership has taken us. And I try to separate that from all the Democrats that are out there. This is not an issue about Democrats or Republicans. It's an issue of who's leading the state right now, who's making the rules. And right now, the majority party leadership, they're being very exclusive, right? When you look at the budgets being put together or they're pushing bills along, they don't even invite the folks in the other aisle into the room to work on the details of budgets and bills. We need to have both, all legislators, at the table, right, or their caucus leaders at the table working on issues. Now, as an engineer, I solve problems. I never designed a water treatment plant or a pump station on my own. I brought in mechanical engineers and electrical engineers, and guess what? I had communications experts there as well, right? You got to bring a team of people together to solve problems. We need to do more of that in the state, and we need to get rid of folks that are up there in Hartford that are just too entrenched in party politics. That needs to change. I want to change that. I want to work with all legislators up in Hartford, regardless of party affiliation, to solve the very serious and common problems that we have here in the 17th district towns and in the state.
So you've worked for Aquarian since about 1992.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm reading your business card.
Yes, sure.
You're the Director of Environmental Management and Government Relations. What's the government relations part of that title? Sure.
So, in terms of environmental management, it covers things like we have a forestry group and source protection group and watershed maintenance, and we have actually a police force that I'm in charge of as well. And on the government relations side, Aquarian, like most corporations, put together sort of like their government agenda, for the a governmental agenda for the company. So I'm in charge of that and helping to see that through for the organization. I've been doing that for a couple years. My career and sort of development, I worked as an engineer for 20 plus years, but I'm looking to be more of a utility executive. So I was looking to gain some experience in other areas. So I've gone down a different path there.
And although this is your first try at public office, just going over your bio, you were the former chairman of the state of Connecticut's African American Affairs Commission.
That's correct.
Under Governor Rowland. At what point did you decide to make this run for office? Was it something that you've been working for a long time, or thinking about for a long time?
I mean, I think it was always in the sort of back of my head, but it wasn't. Hasn't been a career plan of mine, if you will. I've been in the business world now for 25 years. This is my first habit, but I've always been involved in the community. When you look at some of the organizations that I've been involved in, as far as volunteer organizations, Griffin Hospital Board of Directors for several years, been on that. The YMCA Board of Directors, Junior Achievement, teaching basic business principles to high school and elementary school and middle school kids. Also on the Valley Chamber of Commerce. So when I look at my kids, my son's a senior in high school, my daughter's a sophomore, and then I look at who's actually leading the state up in Hartford, you kind of look and you say to yourself, hey, wait a minute, why am I relying on these guys, to lead us here? I think I have something to offer now that I have, almost a quarter century of business experience, and I've been involved in a number of community organizations. And if we, if we don't do something about the current leadership in the state of Connecticut, I'm going to pay for our kids to go to college. They're going to graduate. They're going to look for jobs. They're not going to be able to find a job in Connecticut. I'm going to have to travel to Seattle or California or Florida to see my kids. And then if they do find a job in Connecticut, they're not going to be able to do what I've been able to do right here, which is buy a home, right, and raise a family. Because it's too expensive. It's out of reach for a lot of young folks. So if we continue to go on that path, make the avenue for young folks, right, to start their own family, make their own way, they're going to do it somewhere else where they can afford to do it. So
we're seeing that in the data that we're sort of losing that 18 to 34 demographic.
Clearly. So this is not, just I don't like the kind of suits Malloy wears or something. It's this has to do with that, and it's nothing personal. I think a lot of the legislators and the leaders that are in Hartford are not bad people, but their policies, they gave it a try and it hasn't worked. So we need to bring in other folks with different ideas to go a different path.
And on the other hand, though, your opponent is what, an 11-term incumbent? Is that right, Ethan?
I think it's 12, but I could be wrong. It could be 12, but yeah.
So go ahead, Ethan. Lead into that. That was a
well.
question
I mean,
for
like
you, right?
he's served a while, as you mentioned. Grew up in the district, which is like in terms of party registration, it's heavily Democratic. I mean, unaffiliated outnumber both. But just 2 years ago, he brushed aside that Senator Crisco brushed aside the challenge of Phil Tripp, who's a popular Ansonia Republican in the 17th district. So. I mean, how do you plan on succeeding where others have failed in that respect? And what are you doing differently than those previous challengers? Right. So,
Senator Joe Crisco, first I would like to say he should be certainly commended for his years of service. I mean, 24 years as a state senator, I think is that's something he should be commended for. However, when we look at now and look at the job that he's doing now today, I just don't think he's doing a good job. And what do I base that on? I base it on his voting record, again, being aligned with Governor Malloy, and not being an independent thinker. One thing, though, that Senator Crisco has that I did not have when I started this journey back in really January, February is when I really started. He has name recognition.
Right, and it's so hard
huge.
to unseat an incumbent anywhere locally. But.
Right. So name recognition has been my biggest obstacle thus far. So how do I counter that? Well, I have got to work, 3 or 4 times harder than the incumbent. I've been at this just about every single day, since I put my foot in February. First, in terms of fundraising to qualify for state campaign financing, and since around May, I've been going door to door just about every single day, trying to meet voters, going to events. I've also done things like I've tried to challenge Senator Crisco to a debate, so the constituents can see and hear our approach at tackling the current issues of this state. But Senator Crisco is not interested in doing that. I've heard, because this is my first time running for office, I've heard that sometimes longtime incumbents do that strategy, right? They don't want to give a stage to their challengers. I think that's sad. As a state senator, if I should be fortunate enough to be elected to this office, I would never do that. I think it's important. And you would think someone who's been in office for so long would have a lot to be proud of, a lot to tout, would be more than willing to get up on a stage and defend his voting record, and explain why he thinks it's such a good idea to be aligned with, with Governor Malloy. I could only think that he doesn't have any answers for that. He doesn't have any answers for why he continues to vote strictly along, party lines on just about every issue and bill that comes up, and explain why that's good for the 17th district. The question I would ask is your allegiance to the party, or is it for all the families and the people living in the 17th district? So, trying to show the contrast between Senator Crisco and myself, trying to show the contrast in approach and the focus, I think would be a bit different, because again, I think the main issue is jobs. People need to work. People want to be able to earn and make a living, and we need to show that we're focused on accomplishing that for the folks in the state. I think folks are tired of seeing the state budget cycle after budget cycle in perpetual crises. I think we're being fooled in Hartford. You look at the revenue projections, right? Revenue projections. The last few revenue projections before budgeting, the revenue projection is one number. And then when it comes down to the nitty gritty of doing the projections, we over projected. It's less than what we thought. I say baloney. We all know they know where the revenue projections are going, but they're not giving the people the real information, playing party politics, right? Just to pacify folks, and concentrating more on keeping their party legislators in office, in power. We've got to stop that. We need to do more as legislators, as leaders in the state, to represent the people that we were sent to Hartford to represent. And it's not to represent and to make any particular political party stronger. It's to make the people and the family living in the state stronger.
And who are you relying on, or who is helping you? Is there any mentor or anything like that's helping you on the campaign trail? Because like we said, the task here is tough.
Sure.
Because in anywhere it's tough to unseat an incumbent, someone who's been there for a long time, and it's even harder in 2016, where you have sort of this media consolidation, where you're not getting the coverage that you might have 30 years ago,
right.
35 years ago, or what have you. So who's helping you? Yeah.
So they say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village and a community to bring up, I think, a leader, a political leader in the community. So I'm getting help from many different areas. Certainly the Republican Central Committee has been very helpful.
Because apparently this is one of the flag races of the Republican Party, from what I read at CT Mirror. This is one that the Republicans...
Yeah, that's here. Yeah, yes. And certainly the Democratic leadership is paying attention to as well. But I'll say this, though. The advice and the help that I'm getting is not simply from the Republican Central Committee. I'm on a number of different boards and organizations, and I have lots of Democratic friends who are quietly helping me, helping me out. Because a lot of folks, again, the focus and the issue, it's not one party versus another. We have got to stop that. It is about improving the lives of everybody, living in my district towns and living in Connecticut. And to do that, certainly when you go to work, nobody works with all Republicans or all Democrats. We all work together. And I'm trying to bring that to Hartford as well. So in terms of folks that I know from the business community, from the nonprofit community, I'm director of environmental management at Aquarian. So I'm getting all kinds of advice and information and contact. That's one of the things I really enjoy about this experience. I'm meeting just so many new people, wonderful folks, with different ideas. Folks are giving me their thoughts in terms of the state of the economy and their ideas for where we can improve it. And I like that. I think that's wonderful. I think Senator Joe Crisco is not doing that enough as of late. I think he's riding on his name. I mean, again, he's been in office for many years, but this is to be a state senator. This is the kind of job where you have to really, your heart and your spirit has to be in it. You've got to want to go and see the people. I'm in Hamden. I go to Hamden, knocking on doors. I was in Hamden this weekend, and I nearly like 98% of the doors that I knock, the residents there have never even met Joe Crisco. I don't want to be that type of legislator.
Do people know who represents them? I'm wondering is there an awareness at all that who their legislator is?
Yeah, there's some of that, and I think as far as the local legislators, I think overall in general, I'm not going to just pick on Senator Crisco on this. I think overall, that is an issue. I think for some of the state legislators, folks don't. Sometimes may not realize the importance and the impact that the state legislature has on their daily life. But I think someone like myself that has the energy and the drive, and again, I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy learning about people's issues and their thoughts and ideas, and it feeds me. It helps me to help guide and develop my thoughts and opinions and foundation for helping the district. And I want to be someone that is always open and understands the issues of the district, which over time changes. So you constantly have to be out there in front of folks so that they can tell you what's on their mind, what their issues are.
Did you have a question?
Yeah. You mentioned taxes. Presumably, I think you'd like to see them cut. I'm guessing you don't want to increase payroll taxes, but if you presuming there's a tax cut, where there's going to be a fall in revenue because of that. So is there any, I'm thinking of times when there are revenue comes in less than you expected, like you mentioned that, and they have to cut things from budgets. Everybody screams about what they cut out of the budget. What should be cut out of the state budget, and there seems to be an exercise, this sort of gamesmanship where it's we have to cut the budget, so let's tell people we have to cut the things they like most. There was a recent thing where the State Board of Education said, if we had to, we might cut 2 vocational schools. Yeah, really, and everybody, there was a lot of outcry about that.
At least here in the Valley.
So how do you combat that at budget time, that sort of gamesmanship, and where would you prioritize cuts if they had to come?
Right. So that's where the approach needs to change, because what the majority party is going to say, they're going to say, look, we can't cut taxes because we will have a drop off in revenue. Well, I say you don't cut, let's say, payroll tax or income tax. You don't cut it from the 9 or 10 or 11% that it is now down to 0. You don't do that. But perhaps you cut it one budget cycle from 11 or 10% down to 9, the next to 8. And as you do that, you're going to be encouraging companies because, okay, they get it. They're going in the right direction. You know what? I'm going to hire hire an employee or two more. I'm going to expand more. I'm going to stop my plans for leaving the state. So as they see that the state is working to change its tax structure in a reasonable, business-like manner, I think it will help to change the dynamics, change the attitudes of folks that are owning and running these businesses. It's not a matter of just cutting existing taxes to zero. Of course, we're not talking about doing that, but we're talking about doing it in a step-by-step manner. That on the one side you're cutting taxes, and on the other side you're building confidence in the business community, so that companies one want to stop leaving the state, so stop the bleeding. And two, perhaps you can encourage other companies to come, and we can be more competitive as a state. Other states are doing it. We should be able to do it as well. When you look at Connecticut, we have so much to offer in terms of beautiful landscape, beautiful communities. We have great schools. We're a couple hours one way from New York, a couple hours another way from Boston. There's a lot to offer here in Connecticut. We need to tout that more. But in order to do that, we need to show that we have folks that are leading the state that get it and that are not just making knee-jerk reactions. So what happens when you don't have a balanced overall plan? It's cutting taxes, certainly, and it's also encouraging job growth. You do it at the same time. It's not one or the other. Once we can do that, I think that'll be part of the change of the dynamics of the state. And the current leadership, what they're doing now is just knee-jerk reaction. It's okay. We have to budget. Oh my gosh, we've got a $200 million budget deficit. What are we going to cut? Right, and then we make haphazard decisions that are not based, and you keep the same ineffective, inefficient programs running exactly the same. You do nothing to make them more efficient. You just start cutting jobs, right, which just puts us in a worse case, because now you get a bunch of folks that are going to be put on unemployment, not earning a living, not making money. It's a downward spiral. That needs to change. The current majority party leadership doesn't get it. I am not interested in convincing them to get it. I say we vote them out and we get a new crop of leaders in there to take the state in a new direction for a better Connecticut.
You mentioned how a lot of they don't change the programs; they'll just go to layoffs. I think I'm not an expert in state agencies, but I would think that a lot of that has to do with union contracts and last hired first fired, that sort of pecking order rules and stuff. So how specifically would you say they have to when those contracts come up for renegotiation, they have to change the way state agencies work, and which ones and how should they change?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we look at things like collective bargaining. I do think that's important and necessary, and I think that union leaders, need to be realistic and come to the table and work to negotiate current contracts so that it matches more closely to the reality that we have now as a state. I also again feel that the state workers, we need to develop a better plan for taking constructive criticism and comments and suggestions from state workers to make the departments better, and do it in an organized fashion. Right now, it's just not happening at all. Again, that's part of a multi-level plan to make the state better. The state workers and the state programs and departments that we have play a huge part of it. It's a collective effort. Again, I'm a problem solver. I'm not coming in here saying, hey, this is exactly how we need to solve all of these problems and ills of our state. But what I am saying, though, is that I believe that we need to collectively work more towards finding solutions to common problems that we have.
And then just to get hyper-local for a second, how did you wind up in Ansonia? You live in Ansonia.
Yes.
How long have you lived in the city, and how did you wind up here?
Sure. So moved into Ansonia in 2000. I lived in Hamden for about 3 years. And when I was looking for a place to live, we looked at different communities. Fairfield County was a bit out of reach for various reasons in terms of cost of homes, and we liked the valley. We looked at Ansonia. The home prices were at the time were reasonable. We moved into an area which was a new development. We looked around at the schools. My kids went to Assumption School in Ansonia. I went to a similar type of school in New Haven. I went to St. Peter's Parochial School in New Haven, and I wanted my kids to have that same type of education with the sort of the religious aspect involved as well. And it just seemed to be a good fit. The commute to my office, which at the time was in Bridgeport, was barely a half an hour. And it seemed like a very warm and welcoming community, the Valley. And it has been an excellent experience, being here. My family has grown here in the Valley. I have two very well-adjusted kids, doing great things in high school. And it's been a great American community, to live in.
And then just in terms of economic development here in places like Derby and Ansonia. I mean, we're here our office is on Main Street. We overlook the former Farrell's complex there, much of which just sits vacant.
Right.
You can see it in both Derby and Ansonia downtowns. And then the Republicans locally and Democrat parties in Ansonia are involved in this Facebook back and forth about the best way to spur economic development. In your opinion, what role can state government play in making that happen, and how would you help Derby and Ansonia downtowns if you were elected?
And I hate to keep, I don't hate, but to keep going back to the same issue. How can the state help? The state plays a very big role. Make the state more business friendly so that there are more opportunities for companies to want to come to towns like Ansonia or Derby or any of the Valley towns to open a shop. But until we change the dynamics up in Hartford, until we change the business climate here in the state, it makes it hard for the local officials to move the needle, because the state just looks so unattractive currently for businesses to move here. We need to change that dynamic, and that's the biggest area where the state government plays a big role. Be more of the leaders that they're supposed to be, and do more to make Connecticut attractive for families to want to stay, families to want to move into Connecticut. When you take a look at business and cost of living metrics, we're near the bottom in a number of different areas. We have to work towards changing that dynamic. Right now, that is not happening. The situation here in the state is just getting worse and worse with seemingly no end in sight. Well, I say there is an end in sight. Get some new leadership up there, and let's make a change happen now.
Okay. Ethan, do you want to ask one more? We're at the 47-minute mark, just so everyone.
Yeah. Like another something that like you spoke out on. I think you were at the. You spoke at the during Ansonia's budget process last year. Where they had that big thing at the high school.
You remember
you were
that?
one of a lot of several people who spoke that night. Every year in Ansonia, it seems recently there's been debate over the school budget, with the school district asking for more money than the city seems willing to allot. Both Ansonia and Derby are characterized by the state as quote-unquote distressed communities. And the GOP has long said, rightly, that the state isn't allotting the amount of money it should under its own education cost-sharing formula. There was a recent lawsuit in which a Superior Court judge agreed that the state is currently appealing. What would be your approach to sort of helping solve that education issue? Do you wish the state hadn't appealed and let the judge's ruling sort of play out, or how would you tackle that if elected?
Right. So I think the whole educational allocation system is broken. The educational cost sharing system, when it was initially, the initial concept was it was based on facts and data. It was a formula, but what has happened is it has gotten politicized over the years. So now the allocations are not occurring in any kind of way that I or anybody else can make any sense of. You'll have a legislator that'll be from a part of the town, and maybe he or she is on appropriations. So you say, hey, let's make sure we don't cut or we give more to that those districts, because we want to make sure that our that individual gets reelected, that sort of thing. It's gotten politicized. We need to start over. I believe that the local communities, they're know best how to utilize the funds that are needed for their communities. I think that needs to be taken apart and just redone completely, and take partisan politics out of it. Because right now, communities like Ansonia and Derby and all the way down the line, Bethany, Beacon Falls, Naugatuck, we're suffering because, one, Senator Joe Crisco goes to Hartford. Whatever the majority party says that we're going to get, he just says, okay, fine. You have to speak up for your district. So under the current system, I don't think Senator Joe Crisco is doing enough to speak out for the 17th district. Please find me something somewhere where he speaks out against the plan that the majority party has put together for the town. I'm going to speak out for the 17th district as I work towards changing the educational cost sharing system that currently is broken. So until it gets changed or fixed, I'll be speaking out loudly for the district towns, and I'll be supporting and working with other legislators to come up with a better system for the allocations of those dollars.
And just really quickly, it hasn't seemed so much a hot button issue this year, but Common Core, that was like a big sort of flashpoint, I guess, in previous years. Do you have any, quickly, do you have any thoughts on that, or how it's being implemented or not?
Yeah, I'm not. So one, I'm not a professional educator. I'll just stay with that. But my opinion is, I am not in favor of Common Core. I think it's just taking a lot of the profession and art that's involved with teaching out of the hands of the teachers. Too much focus on standardized tests. I think the wave is going away from that. Anyhow, but I would follow on that wave. I would say Common Core is not working. I think I personally just think it needs to be thrown out and just let's just do it another way. And again, I'm not saying that I have the exact answer, but bring in the professionals and let's come up with something better, because no one seems to like it. At least here in Connecticut. The administrators don't like it. The students don't seem to like it. The parents certainly don't like it. So let's work towards getting rid of it. That's my opinion.
And then Eugene mentioned you were the former chairman of the State African American Affairs Commission. Is that
That's correct.
the correct title? Sorry.
Yes.
We had a recent forum just across the street at the Doyle Senior Center a couple of months ago, where the city did. In conjunction with the Ansonia NAACP, where they spoke with police leaders from the Valley and just regular residents, sort of trying to reach out to communities the police department serve and protect. I mean, we haven't seen the Valley, thankfully, hasn't seen problems similar to those sort of roiling other communities with respect to police public relations. But it sort of struck me even at that forum last night in the Valley. The police brass that were there said that, we have to do a better job sort of reaching out to the communities we serve and protect. Have you seen that, locally at all? Or do you think the local police, do a good job of that, or any areas that, the communities and the police should sort of work together on?
I think we're fortunate. I think in all of our district towns, our police departments do a wonderful job at protecting and making sure that order is maintained throughout our communities. I do not believe that we have the same types of issues that are found in other large urban areas, say Chicago or Ferguson or Milwaukee, but there's always room for improvement, and I think our local police departments understand that. That's why they're always reaching out and working with groups like the NAACP and other groups. I think that's very important, and it's not just with minority groups. It's for every community that we have in these 7 district towns. I think we should continue with that, figure in terms of making things better as far as community and policing, and I absolutely would want to be a part of that. But I do want to make it clear that this is an issue for everyone living in the 7 district towns, and certainly certain communities have more or a different focus than others. But I think that we have police departments that get it, that are willing to make adjustments as needed to police better. And I think we're in a very good position. I think that's great, and I certainly would like to be more of a part of that as the 17th District's state senator.
And then really quickly, I guess, or take your time, take as much time as you need. But on your website, you say all options are "quote unquote" on the table with respect to combating the opioid epidemic we've seen sort of sweeping the state in recent years. If it were up to you, how specifically would you do that? Would you decriminalize? What approach should the state be taking to try to fix that problem?
Okay, so first I'll start at the state level. And my wife works with the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services out of she works out of New Haven. So I get a lot of her opinion and experience in terms of from that angle. So first of all, we have an opioid epidemic. It is here right now. The problem in Hartford is that the current leadership does not recognize that. So what's going on is that spending towards treatment for folks that are addicted, particularly opioid addictions, has remained flat. At best, has remained flat, but the number of people that are afflicted with this opioid epidemic has gone up tremendously over the last several years. So when I go back to reprioritizing how we spend our money, there's just a lack of vision, a lack of focus. And again, I go back to Senator Crisco because I say to myself, look, as the state senator, should be doing more to be vocal about the issue. So what happens? You have spending is flat, going to these different clinics and programs, but the number of people that are becoming addicted is growing. So what happens there? The waiting lines become just utterly ridiculous, right? The staffs that are trying to address this problem are overstressed. What happens to those people if they don't get treatment? Where do they go? I'm on the Griffin Hospital Board of Directors. I know where they go. They go to the emergency room, which costs exponentially more money to treat someone for a chronic issue with acute care. Right? And then what you just basically, they come in, you patch them up and you send them back out into the community doing nothing in terms of treating the problem or the issue. We need folks in Hartford that understand what is going on currently in our community. We need to reprioritize our spending. More spending is needed in that area. We need more programs. We need to handle the issue of addiction. Now, again, it's not a matter of, throw the addicts in jail or throw them in a program. No, it's a combination of things. Look, if someone is breaking the law, right, they must pay the consequences, right? Okay, that's on one side. But let's encourage folks not to get in that kind of position, right, where they're addicted or then they're not behaving in a rational type of way because they're not getting the type of treatment services that they should be. We need to reprioritize our spending. We need to spend more for treatment of folks that are addicted to drugs, particularly to handle this opioid epidemic that is here right now. It's not a next month or a next year issue or let's follow the trend. No, it's done. We need to focus more on treatment now. But I am not in favor of decriminalizing illegal activity. Illegal activity has its consequences, and certainly it's up to a judge to consider any extenuating circumstances. I am more focused on the treatment of the folks that need that help and looking at what are the causes and the root issues that are leading to that. I mean, for one thing, it's just that as time has gone on, a lot of these drugs that are out there are just far more potent than they were decades ago. You look at this fentanyl thing, they say it's 40, 50 times more potent than heroin. I've never done drugs before. I've done heroin, but from what I've heard, heroin is a pretty addictive and potent drug. And you're talking about a drug that's out there in the street that's 40 to 50 times more potent than that. That's a problem. That's an issue.
And of course, they say nowadays that we're starting off. It's not like the I don't even know if these were the old days, but junkies were on the street, but now we're sort of we're getting addicted, from our parents' medicine cabinets, and things like that. I guess healthcare plays a part as well.
Sure, absolutely, yes. We need more focus on that for sure, here and now.
Okay, as we wind down, I think those are our questions. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up shop here?
Sure. I mean, I certainly would like to say that I hope I'm given the privilege and the pleasure to represent folks in the 17th district. I've got the energy and the drive to try to make a change for our district towns in Hartford. I think Senator Joe Crisco is literally just more of the same, and we don't even have another couple years of that. We can't afford that. Governor Malloy is going to be in office for another 2 years. We don't need someone in Hartford that's just going to succumb or be a surrogate to Governor Malloy and his policies, because I don't think they're working for the 17th district. We need a change right now. One, to minimize the damage of Governor Malloy, and hopefully do more to pressure him to make different choices and decisions for the state.
Okay, Mr. Logan, I want to thank you so much for coming to Ansonia, even though it wasn't that. I guess you live here, so that's not that much of a stretch. But taking time out of your day to talk. My pleasure. To talk to Ethan and I, we really appreciate it.
Ethan, Eugene, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
And if you want to learn more about George Logan, visit his website, www.logan4ct, that's the number 4, logan4ct.com. And he's also on Facebook and Twitter as well. And for Ethan Fry, this is Eugene Driscoll saying we will see you next week on Valley Navel Gazing.